All right, well, let me first of all finish the first thing I was going to talk about, and we were going to talk about the city budget as well. And part of a healthy democracy, in addition to giving everyone the right to speak, is respecting everybody and having a degree of civility. So I would appreciate it if you give me an opportunity to finish what I was talking about, because it has to do with the future of this ward, and then I was going to move on and talk about the budget. So let me just finish that. I wanted to give everyone an assurance that if I were to be confirmed, that we would have a full, open process on the part of this organization to offer that we would hear from everyone who was interested in perhaps being considered to be appointed by the mayor. The way it works is, if there's a vacancy at this early stage of the aldermanic term, the mayor has the obligation to appoint someone to fill the spot within 60 days of the vacancy, subject to city council approval. I have spoken with the mayor in the eventuality that I was appointed and confirmed, and I got his assurance that he would respect the process that we have here. And if I did get appointed, or before I got appointed, if I got nominated, that we would begin the process, working as an organization, to come up with an agreed upon process for considering a candidate to recommend to the mayor. So just to give you the assurance that no one's going to be appointed without the people of this organization having a full and fair opportunity to hear from all the candidates and to participate in a process for deciding who that person would be to recommend to me. I would accept that recommendation and in turn recommend that individual to the mayor, just so everyone understands the case. This may not be for a long time. I may not be, the earliest I would be appointed would be January, but it may not be until the spring, may not be ever. So until the meantime, I'm still going to be the alderman, and will continue to serve you in the job that I really love. So I just wanted to let you all know.
This doesn't sound as if it weakens the mayor's ability to appoint anybody he wishes. This does not sound like it gives us the power to pick your replacement.
Well, actually, maybe you didn't hear me. The mayor.
I did hear you. I was listening closely.
All right. Well, let me repeat myself, because that's exactly what the mayor agreed to do. The mayor agreed to appoint whomever is the product of the process that we put together here in the 49th Ward for selecting.
Is he required to do that?
Okay. Well, I appreciate having the opportunity to clarify that.
Right.
And so, but that, we don't want to put, this is all very premature. I don't know when and if I will be nominated by the governor. And if I am, I don't know when or if I'm going to be confirmed. So we've got a lot of time to work on that. My hope is, if the governor does end up appointing me, that at that time we will form a group of folks to begin the process of coming up with a process for determining my successor, if I'm so fortunate as to be confirmed by the Illinois State Senate. Okay. Yeah. Question.
After the appointment, is there a special election that has to be done?
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah. The appointment would only last until a special election is held in February of 2013. So, so the appointment would only be for the time the vacancy occurs, January, February, March, until the election is held in February 2013. So the appointed person would only serve for that term. Of course, they would be free to run for themselves if they wanted to, but the electorate as a whole would have an opportunity in a special election to pick the alderman to fill the last 2 years of the term. Tom, thanks so much for asking that. I forgot to mention that. Okay. Well, the budget. It was a very, very difficult vote. I think what we heard tonight was representative of a lot of the concerns that I've heard over the last few months as people have been debating the budget. As someone who 8 years ago was the lead sponsor of the successful resolution against the invasion of Iraq, who has been a fighter for living wages as a chief sponsor of the Big Box Living Wage Ordinance, someone who always sounded the clarion call against federal policies that have harmed cities and states and have forced us to make these incredibly difficult decisions. People asked me 8 years ago, why was the city council getting involved in weighing in on a foreign policy issue, the invasion of Iraq? Well, this is why. Because ultimately, instead of spending billions here at home, we were spending hundreds of billions fighting a war that was completely unnecessary and costing thousands of American lives and hundreds of thousands of Iraqi lives. But that, unfortunately, there are a lot of folks in Washington. Fortunately, some folks in Washington heard us. Unfortunately, they didn't have the levers of power, and as a result, cities and towns are faced with extremely difficult budget decisions. And the most recent decision was the most recent budget was a clear example of that. It was a difficult budget. I did end up voting for it, but we did obtain a number of concessions from the mayor. It was probably as someone who's been in the city council under Daley for 20 years, what I found between the difference between that mayor and this mayor is that this mayor actually engaged in a dialogue with the city council. It was not a my way or the highway kind of budget. There was a give and take. We did win back some money for the libraries that had been originally slashed. We restored money for the graffiti blaster program. We've restored money for cleaning up vacant lots. We restored money for the condominium refuse rebate. So there were efforts that through the efforts of 28 aldermen who got together, signed a letter, delivered it to the mayor. I was one of the signatories and one of the organizers of it. We were able to gain some concessions. Was it a budget that I would have drafted if I were the mayor? No, there would have been differences. But so was it a perfect budget? No, it wasn't. But as I said on the floor of the city council, I wasn't going to allow the perfect to be enemy of the good. It was not a perfect budget, but it was a good budget because it was an honest budget. And let me explain what I mean by an honest budget. By an honest budget, meaning that the budget was balanced without resorting to gimmicks like selling city assets, by dipping into reserves. Instead, it was balanced based on the revenues that we have coming in right now. There is still what they call a structural deficit in the budget, meaning we spend more as a city than we take in revenue, but that structural deficit has been reduced by about 75%. And as a result, we had to make some extremely hard choices. All the choices that were made were not necessarily the choices I was made, but I'm never going to have until the unlikely possibility that I'm mayor, we're not going to have, there's not going to be a budget that I believe is perfect. And it would be a lot easier politically for me to say no. It's always a lot easier to say no to something than it is to say yes. And I felt on the basis of the compromises that we were able to obtain, plus assurances that I have received from the Commissioner of the Department of Health regarding the mentally ill, and like so many people, my family has been touched by mental illness, so it's not something that I am absolutely insensitive to. And in fact, the current health department commissioner is someone that I got to know quite well. Before he got that job, he ran the Heartland Health Health Clinic here in Rogers Park. I found him to be someone who's compassionate, who does care about the people he's treating, and particularly the people who cannot afford health care in the private sector. And so he has assured me that everyone who is uninsured will continue to receive the care that they're receiving now. It's not adequate now, I absolutely agree with that, but there's not going to be any diminishment in care. So the uninsured are either going to continue to receive care by one of the remaining city clinics, or they're going to receive care at one of the private federally qualified health clinics that have opened up throughout the city of Chicago. But I'm not just taking his word for it. My colleagues and I in the Progressive Caucus have said we were going to have regular hearings, bring him in to evaluate the progress that he is making over the next several months as we transition into this new budget. In addition, I am meeting with him personally with some of the mental health advocates who met with me last week to sit down face to face with him and have him hear their concerns and to make sure that they are assured that they will continue to receive the health care that they are entitled to and that they deserve. If anyone in this room wants to be a part of that meeting and wants to be a part of the meeting in a civil, cordial fashion, please let me know after the meeting. Let one of my staff know. Wayne Frazier is one of my staff assistants. Adriana Moreno-Narvaez back there is another staff assistant in here. Please come to them, say you want to be part of that meeting, give us your name, phone number, email address, and we will be in touch with you. Again, it was not something that was easy. But there are no easy choices. There really are no easy choices. The TIFs, the tax increment financing districts that are in place were rated somewhat. About 20% of the surplus was given to help balance the budget. But keep in mind, the TIFs are just going into TIFs is not addressing the structural deficit. It's another one-time source of funding. It doesn't solve the ongoing problem of this structural deficit. Ultimately, we need to change the way revenue is raised in this city. Alderman Munoz and I tried very hard a year ago to put on a measure, an advisory referendum on the ballot that called for a tax on the commodities exchanges in the city of Chicago.